So, fearful avoidance and the idea that they may pick a fight in order to prevent boredom from taking place. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about why this happens, really the root causes, and then what you can do, because I think it's really important to recognize that this is not a sustainable solution. So, if you have these deep subconscious fears of boredom and you see yourself in this position where you may pick a fight when you feel like the relationship is flat or you're too settled or you're settling in too much, you have to realize that every time this happens, it's eroding the depth of the bond of your connection. Every time there's a fight, an argument that takes place, it literally does damage to the relationship, especially and in particular if it's not resolved in a healthy way. So, we're going to do a deep dive into why this happens, what you can do. And if you stick around until the end, you'll also understand one really important tool for how to recondition the root cause. First and foremost, it's really important to recognize that there are six major stages of relationships. This is based on the work of Dr. Susan Johnson. And by the way, if you want to do a deep dive into like what the six stages of relationships are and the roadmap for how the fearful avoidant attachment style actually shows up in those six stages, some of the pain points, challenges, tools to help you make it through those different stages, you can check out the course down below, all about fearful avoidant in the six stages of love, for free for 7 days. But we have the dating stage, which is like the vetting stage, getting to know each other stage, the honeymoon stage. Then we have the power struggle stage. Then we have the stability, commitment, and bliss stages. And I find that a lot of fearful avoidant attachment styles, because they have a lot of attachment trauma, generally don't really make it beyond the power struggle stage of relationships, which means your entire worldview of what a relationship looks like is that it's either dating and honeymoon, which is like that excitement, infatuation, heightened neurochemistry of oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin and phenylethylamine, which is the attraction neurochemical. You have this like heightened state in the relationship there. You can think of it as being like the climb on the roller coaster, that you're hitting that sort of climatic point on the roller coaster before it drops. And then we have the power struggle stage. Now, statistically, the most relationships break up in the power struggle stage for everybody, for all attachment styles. But fearful avoidance, this tends to, of course, if you see yourself going through these dynamics, it's like you only see the extreme highs and the extreme lows. And fearful avoidance have this thing where they put a lot of pressure on themselves to constantly be in a peak state of their relationships, to constantly have the best date ever, to constantly have the best time ever, to constantly, be growing in the relationship in terms of the depth of your connection. Fearful avoidance put all this pressure on themselves. And so when there's not this peak state, because fearful avoidance generally see relationships through the lens of either the dating and honey, well, oh my gosh, so the dating and honeymoon stage or the power struggle stage. If you see these like two polarities of things, then you don't realize that the in between can actually be a good thing. So I want to talk about this first for a second. What is the in between? The in between is that after you come out of the power struggle stage, which is literally characterized by like deeper understanding of each other and acceptance of each other's flaws, fears, and concerns. And also to move out of the power struggle stage, we have to have better communication. And so, really, if you think about it, in the dating and honeymoon stage, it's like we're connecting with people with our mask on. Like we're on our best behavior in these stages. We're not showing somebody all of ourselves. By the time you hit the power struggle stage, that's happening. That's happening a lot more. And if you're able to work through that, you're actually really moving the needle from more conditionally based love, because you're only really showing yourself in those earlier stages with conditions, like you're showing the best version of yourself. You're moving from this conditionally based love into unconditionally based love or more unconditionally based love, because you're showing yourself without conditions, without being on your best behavior. You're sharing your flaws, you're sharing your fears, you're being more seen and more known by your partner. And to progress through that stage, we then end up in the stability stage. Now, here's where this really has a role for fearful avoidance. Fearful avoidance do not have a subconscious comfort zone around stability. They have a subconscious comfort zone around chaos, around the roller coaster relationships, because in one form or another, that's what they saw growing up, either between their parents themselves, or if they were in a single parent home, that might have been the relationship between them and their parent, or they may have just grown up around chaos in general. And so their entire subconscious comfort zone for their nervous system function is to be in fight or flight. So if you are constantly in chaos growing up, even though logically your conscious mind is like, that's not healthy, that's not the right way of doing things, we need stability in our lives. Even though your conscious mind may know that, your subconscious mind is going to be like, No, we're used to chaos. We're interested in chaos. Let's go back to the chaos. And so what's going to happen as a result of that is that your subconscious, which is responsible for 95 to 97% of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and decisions, compared to 3 to 5% of your conscious mind, your subconscious mind wins. Your subconscious mind is going to want to go back into chaos. So if you, first of all, just to summarize so far, because I want you to see these pieces coming together. First of all, if you only see relationships as being all extremely good or all extremely bad because you're only used to going through the lifetime of a relationship that's like dating and honeymoon, this like heightened positive state, and then the power struggle where things fall apart. Okay. So you see things in these extreme polarities. Then on top of that, your entire subconscious comfort zone is to be in extremes. And then on top of that, you constantly put pressure on yourself to sort of like be perfect in your relationships or like have these peak states of your relationships where everything is like top of the line. Well, then guess what happens? You think that love and passion is also like that fire that that passion can also be fighting. And so if you don't see things, when you enter out of the power struggle stage, if you get into the stability stage, first of all, it's outside of your subconscious comfort zone, which means your subconscious mind will sabotage it, right? Your subconscious mind will be like, no. And realistically, the subconscious is survival oriented. It's wired for survival first. So even though your conscious mind is like, it hurts to go through pain, it hurts to fight, it hurts to go through struggle. Your subconscious mind says, yeah, but we've survived this whole time. So it's been working for us. So let's recreate it. So you have this sort of like funny set of circumstances that's taking place where your subconscious is going to sabotage stability. You don't know that there even could be stability or that stability could be a good thing because you're seeing relationships as a polarity. And so when things become too stable or too comfortable, or you start settling into your relationship, oftentimes a fearful avoidance sees that as the relationship being on its way out, being, oh my gosh, we're going to get bored of each other. And the fourth point for root cause, by the way, is that fearful avoidance have a subconscious belief system that either they're going to get bored of somebody else or somebody's going to get bored of them. And it's because of these same factors. It's because you're used to chaos, unfortunately, right? It's not your fault, but that tends to be your programming, your wiring, your nervous system function. So generally, we see fearful avoidance go through these sort of four major components, right? You're used to the chaos, you put pressure on yourself to have things in this peak state. You want to stay in the subconscious comfort zone around love and connection. And then as you go through these different dynamics, right? Before we even get to the fourth point here, as you go through these different dynamics, your experience when you settle in feels dangerous because you're used to number four, seeing things in polarities. So what happens? Well, if you're thinking that settling in is not working and it means that the relationship's on its way out, and then if you can't seem to recreate that peak state, well, a lot of fearful avoidance will start having these thought patterns come up, things along the lines of, they're going to start to take me for granted. It's bad that they're settling in. Or if they're settling in, they're going to get bored of me. Or if I'm settling in, I'm going to get bored of them. So I have to do something to cause some kind of, flare up in the relationship where our passion is here and the intensity is back. And what will often happen is the fearful avoidant will pick a fight. So they will either pick a fight about something that is really small. They'll dig something up that's in the past that might be a bigger deal. And they will do this at a subconscious level because they think that, okay, well, we're deeply emotionally engaging. Now, here's a really funny part of this. The subconscious mind has needs, and it's a needs meeting machine. And when we can't get our needs met in a good way, the subconscious mind will try to get its needs met in any way, which can include unhealthy ways. And I've always seen this relationship between when people have a really high need for emotional connection. If they can't get it met in a good way, they'll get it met by bickering with each other, right? So this can exist on a small scale, but with the fearful avoidance and the sort of more polarized, all good or all bad, kind of all or nothing thinking, it might be a bigger fight. And the fearful avoidant, I think, hopes deep down that we'll pick the fight, we'll make up after, we'll be closer again, the passion's reignited in the relationship. That roller coaster is their subconscious comfort zone, and it's what they think that love is. And then, through this experience, they don't realize that constant volatility in relationships is the number 3 leading cause of what causes relationships to break down. It's the number 3 leading cause of why people break up. And so you may think in the short term that it produces some kind of short-term gratification or short-term benefit to the relationship, but in the long term, it's why people break up. It's how relationships erode, and it makes you particularly vulnerable to the power struggle stage of relationships as a whole for having those breakdowns occur and for the relationship falling apart. apart. So what do you actually do? Well, number one, the most important thing is to reprogram your subconscious comfort zone away from chaos. Fearful avoidance, because they tend to have these constant ideas that, like, okay, it's chaos at the end of the day. What ends up happening is that you'll probably find that chaos follows you. And it's more that your subconscious mind is accidentally creating chaos. Although, of course, chaos can be following you too. There can definitely be external circumstances that play a role. But if you're a fearful avoidant and you're constantly in this like fight or flight state, think of how your life becomes when you make decisions from fight or flight, right? Like either you overfight with somebody too strongly, and then that causes a detriment and that causes things to be difficult, or you flee things prematurely, like maybe go from job to job rather than maybe communicating your needs to an employer, setting boundaries, or doing things that you could help you improve your circumstances in the actual dynamic itself that you're currently in. And so when you lack staying power, you're constantly having to start your life over, right? And that builds up over time. That can be really difficult. It can cause growth and awareness for a period of time for sure, but eventually it can actually take away from growth. So, or if you're in freeze mode, right? Another sympathetic nervous system state. Well, then you may freeze. You may avoid looking at your bills, avoid doing things that you need to be able to do to keep your life in good shape. And so when you're constantly in this zone, it stops you from being able to really recondition this comfort zone out of chaos. And a few core beliefs that you want to work on, and there's lots of reprogramming tools on this channel, and of course in the personal development school too. One of the tools you want to work on is reprogramming limiting beliefs that are: it is safe to be safe. It is safe to settle into relationships. It's actually because once you get through that stability stage, you get into the commitment and bliss stage, which is like the honeymoon stage, but with more unconditional love. And so, reprogramming those ideas and then actually retraining your nervous system by practicing mindfulness, breath work, meditation, light exercise, yoga, walking, stretching, all these things actually get you in parasympathetic nervous system mode. And as you practice them, you can recondition the state you're living in all the time. So, pairing those things together, it is safe to feel safe in love. It is safe to settle in. It is safe to feel connected and stable. Can help you shed these old ideas of what relationships supposed to look like and stop this sabotaging pattern of behavior where you end up picking a fight to prevent boredom, but it really erodes the relationship long term. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening, for being here. Feel free to check out that course all about the 6 different stages of relationships for fearful avoidance by using the link down below. It gives you access to all of the relationships for all attachment styles during the 6 stages. You get that whole roadmap. And thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing if you're enjoying this channel. And thank you so much for stopping by.